Okay, so we've started a new game, and here we are. I chose the knight to start, but it doesn't really matter. So, you've got your character here, and if you press on the D-pad, I think there's a D-pad for the 360 as well. Um, so you've got these three selections here, so your equipment, your inventory, and your status. What we're going to look at first, we're going to go to status, because there's all this to look at. Now, we've been through the attributes that you can see, the stats that you can see on the left-hand side, vigor, attunement, endurance, all that jazz. So we've already done that. Let's go through the other stuff that's here, because there's a lot of numbers being thrown at us at the beginning. HP, self-explanatory. Your health goes to 0, you die. FP, these are the focus points I was talking about before, and they govern effectively how much mana you have to cast your spells, but they also govern things like certain weapon techniques with weapons. So if you go, completely not a caster at all, FP can still be useful, although it's not as compulsory. Stamina, I would say, is the best stat in the game. It lets you roll, jump, run, attack, block. Here, we'll get a quick look here. Stamina is the green bar, so rolling, attacking. If I try to run, it's all stamina. Regular movement doesn't cut into stamina, but if you're blocking and an enemy hits you, it's going to eat some of your stamina as well. Now we've got equip load. This one's really important, and it's not very well explained. You see that 33.3 out of 55. This is kind of a weird stat, but it's also incredibly important. Your equip load is going to decide, one, obviously how much you can carry, but also how quickly you roll. So what we're going to do, we're going to back out of here for a second, and we're going to go to the equipment menu. At the top right, you will see weight ratio and equip load together. Weight ratio is the really important one. It's kind of a pain in the ass that it's here and it's not in the other menu, but we got to deal with it. Basically, with weight ratio, if you're at 70 or below, your character will roll like this. You'll get a nice clean roll, and remember, while you're rolling in this animation, you're invincible. So if an attack sweeps through you, even if you see it touch your character's body while you're in this roll animation, you are invincible. Here's the issue, though. If you are at weight ratio 70% and beyond, you will do what's called a fat roll, which is slower, hard to control, and you don't get as much of that invincibility. It's really, really inadvisable to play this game with your weight ratio above 70%. It can still be done, but you're making your life incredibly hard. And then, this one's not as important, but it can be cool. Let's take off everything. If we are at Christ, I can't even say it. Weight ratio 30 or below, then you'll do this roll, which is a little bit faster. It's a little hard to tell the difference, but this one's definitely faster. You can definitely go with a light armor, like ninja build or whatever, and you will have more time while you're invincible, and your roll will generally just be faster. So 70 and below is the magic number that gets you into that middle range roll. And then 30 and below is the super fast one. So I would say whenever you're playing, just as long as you're 70% or below, you'll be fine. Then we get to item discovery. Again, self-explanatory that the higher your item discovery, the more shit you will discover, and the more likely you will be to get rare drops. Poise, I would just ignore largely. It's been very weakened in this game. Poise is not incredibly important. It's with certain weapons, if your poise is high enough, you can attack through the enemy attacks. Don't worry. You know what? Forget poise. Forget about it. Doesn't matter right now. But basically, heavier armor gives more poise. Weapon attack, that's all really self-explanatory. R weapon 1 is just your first weapon, 2 is your second, 3 is your third, and then L weapon is in your shield hand. And you've got 3 slots for those as well. That's all pretty self-explanatory also. Physical defense, you can see, is tied into raw physical, and then you've got strike, slash, thrust. D&D rules for this one. Strike is like maces and hammers. Slash is swords and, you know, falchions and things like that. And then thrust is more for like rapiers and spears and things like that. You can always look at a weapon's stats. Like if we go here and we look at the longsword, we can see it does standard and then thrust if you look at the top. So the reason it's got 2 is this will do your standard damage, this sweep, but if you do a heavy attack, that counts as thrust damage. So all of that basically tells you for those physical resistances, you are going to have, you know, more or less. You can see here that strike is your lowest, so strike damage is going to do a little more than the other physical damage types. And the same goes for enemies as well. Some of them are more resistant or less resistant to certain damage types. That's actually very important in this game. Not just physical, but magic, fire, lightning, dark, whatever. Certain enemy types are like incredibly easy once you figure out, oh, okay, he's vulnerable to fire damage, for example. And then you can crush them with whatever you can use to do fire damage. Magic damage is exactly that. It's magic damage. It's not, fire is not included there, nor is lightning, as you can see. It's typically blue, although some things will deal magic damage without you knowing that it's magic. Typically heavy armor, you can see you have far less in the way of magic resistance, and things like robes and lighter armors might have more. Fire resistance, you're doing okay. Fire attacks, there is a lot in this game, so it's good to have a good fire defense. Lightning as well, you can see that lightning is lower, and this kind of makes sense. There's a bit of logic to this in that you are wearing metal armor. So your lightning is going to be conductive, or rather your armor will be conductive, and you're going to take more lightning damage than you would of the other damage types. And then dark is just, it's just dark damage. There's no real explanation for that. It's just a different damage type. Sometimes it's purple, sometimes it's black, it's dark damage. So then you've got the other little resistances there. Bleed, poison, frost, curse. Those are all different status effects. Bleed, poison, frost, and curse, you will see a meter building up on your screen in front of you. For bleed, you'll see the little blood dot. For poison, that purple shit. For frost, the snowflake. And for curse, it's that little skull. Bleed, as it builds up, it's not dealing any damage to you, but once you hit the end of your bleed meter, you'll lose a chunk of your health. You bleed out, effectively. It might kill you, it might not. Poison, once the meter fills, you're poisoned, and it's Pokemon rules, so you're going to take a little bit of damage over time. Frost is a little like both of them combined. No, that's not true. Frost is, once the meter fills, you lose a little bit of health, not as much as bleed, and then your resistances go down and your stamina recovery goes down for a short time. Then curse is the worst of the bunch. Once it fills, you die. There's no escaping this. Doesn't matter how much HP you have. Dead. Goodbye. Then, and curse doesn't deal any damage on its own. It's only when the meter fills up that you just straight up die and you're sent back to the last fire you were at. And then attunement slots is the number of spells you can remember at a time. These can all be changed at a bonfire. So you effectively have your repertoire of spells, and then you can attune a certain number of spells each time you go out. So you can swap those out as you like. And that's pretty much it.